Well, I imagine there's one reason and one reason alone that you've clicked on this video, and that's because you'd like to hear someone else on the internet dunk on the Lord of the Rings Gollum. Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. I made a little bit of a mistake. About 7 or 8 months ago, finally got hold of a PlayStation 5. Mostly because I was looking forward to eventually the release of Starfield, because, you know, I'm one of those Bethesda nerds. And despite the fact that we can guarantee it's going to be buggy and weird, it's still, you know, exciting to look forward to a brand new Bethesda title that brings the same kind of gameplay mechanics you get out of Fallout and the Elder Scrolls, but in a more traditional science fiction setting with multiple worlds and spaceships, blah, 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 blah. However, you know, that's still off in the distance, and, you know, I was just trying to see what they had that was available that was exclusively for PS5, because the bulk of the games that you can play on PS5 are actually PS4 games that, you know, you get slightly better graphic fidelity or speed and loading screen time and all that kind of stuff if you play it on the PS5. But they're not specifically designed to only be using the optimized features of the PS5. So I was looking, you know, at games that were coming up, and one of the ones that I saw was the Lord of Ring Gollum, which I went ahead and pre-ordered. And, you know, well, it came out, and I'm sure you've already noticed from the internet, if you've clicked on this video and have any interest in these sorts of things, that obviously this game was a little bit of a whiff. Now, some of the declarations being made about this game might be going maybe a little too strong. I feel that this is a game that is broken by a failure of execution, but the concepts behind it aren't bad concepts. The whole reason why I decided to pre-order it is that the idea of an assassination stealth game starring Gollum that allows you to kind of explore the other side of the Lord of the Rings story through his point of view, and maybe, you know, work in excuses for him doing little things that might have actually helped Frodo and the gang out because he wants to make sure that he gets the ring and that Mordor doesn't get the ring, and stuff like that could have all been interesting. However, it's very light on assassination kills. I think twice so far in the section of the game I've played through, I'm still stuck in Mordor. You know, have you actually had to, like, you know, sneak up behind somebody and choke them out? The part, it's just sneaking around and getting from plot point to plot point. In some ways, it kind of vaguely reminds me of games like the Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo game or Alan Wake, where it's, yeah, there's some amount of action adventure in it, but it's definitely more of a plot story type of game. But saying that the entire concept is outright bad I just don't agree with that. There are ideas in the game that could have been better had they spent much more time and focus to you know, get this thing cranked out here. There's also aspects of the story and its limitations that make me wonder how much of it is also you know, one of those issues tied in with what specific rights did they buy access to be able to make this game, in the same way that Rings of Power only had access to the, you know, the bibliographies and appendices at the end of the Lord of the Rings novels, but they didn't have access to the full catalog and the Silmarillion and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if there are those sorts of questions in here. The DLC that they have available for it is all stuff that, especially for the price they want, should have just went ahead and been in the game anyway. You shouldn't be having to spend $3 to hear the elves speak in Elven. You know, there's moments where it gives you the semblance of a branching point of whether or not you want to go with Smeagol's or Gollum's take on something. Since it's a prequel of sorts, though, like, no matter what, the character trajectory has to be locked into being the Gollum that we have in the Lord of the Rings novels, because he can't diverge too far off into the path of becoming Smeagol and redeeming himself, because then otherwise he wouldn't be fit to be the character he's supposed to be in the main storyline and all that kind of stuff. Like all prequels, it kind of locks the destiny and fate of characters in. I mean, the game, you know, you could try to make the excuse that the game is maybe just, you know, naturally on hard levels. Some of the sneaking is a bit of a pain in the ass. It has a bit of that Mario quality to it where, you know, you find the points of the level that you fall into the pit, or you get hit by the fire plant and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, after you've worked out all the kinks of what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to avoid, you can blow through the whole level really fast afterwards. but it constantly relies on checkpoint autosaves. There was one point where one of those checkpoint autosaves caused me to keep being reloaded back to a place where I'm trying to hide from orcs, but you restarted me over and over again right next to an orc that immediately sees me, and so immediately get captured in the seconds before you even have time to hit the controllers. Bad game design. I've noticed a couple of glitch points where you fall through a floor where you're not supposed to fall through a floor. Way too much Mordor. Some of the character designs are sloppy, but I don't know how much of that just to blame on Unreal Engine or just they just didn't take the time to go through it. There's nothing about it that screams terribly woke. I like the idea that occasionally Gollum has to argue with himself over whether or not to approach a situation a certain way. But once again, though, the mechanic for that, while the idea is cool, that, you'd kind of play into Gollum's schizophrenia and him, debating himself over what to do, but the mechanic for it is just terrible. The conversation wheel from Elder Scrolls Oblivion was better than what they have going on in this. It's disappointing. For the price tag, I intend to get $60 worth of entertainment out of this thing, so I'm probably not quite done playing it yet. I at least want to get out of Mordor. The Mordor sequence takes too long. Because its lack of quality means it probably doesn't have a lot of replayability in it. If you do force yourself to get all this way through the game, are you really likely to stop and do it over and explore, potential branching points? Like, what if you went with Gollum's take instead of Smeagol's take at certain points, and vice versa? There are points where it seems like the plot is leading up to something, and then it suddenly veers off into a completely different direction, and I don't know how much that has to do with the choice points. But since it's a prequel and Gollum has to end up being the Gollum that we know at the end, I'm not really sure if replaying it actually will show you anything different in terms of, did you decide that Gollum's more afraid of Spider, Shelob, or is he more afraid of the ring wraiths, and all that kind of stuff. Does he lie about who Bilbo Baggins was and what he looks like to try to conceal the information to himself, or does he decide, to take the Candleman's side? And also this introduction of these new underling characters in Sauron's organization, in concept, not a bad idea, but just not quite executed properly, and some of the names are weird, and really about the only thing this game has going for it so far is that it's not obnoxiously woke at any point, at least not that I've noticed. And like some of the stuff looks cool, some of it looks bad. There are little things here and there where you can see the semblance and shape of what could have been a really good game, but for whatever reason, it didn't just quite seem to get there, Could have been a budget issue, could have been a time issue, could have been limitations on what exactly in the Tolkien lexicon they were allowed to play with. I don't know. What you've heard is mostly accurate. My only real difference of opinion on the whole Gollum debate is that I don't think the inherent concept of it was a bad idea. It just was not executed well. So I guess it's just a classic case of caveat emptor, buyer beware. Although, you never know. I've noticed some people live streaming them playing it. This might actually fall into that category of something that's so bad that it becomes memeable and therefore has a certain kind of appeal to experience it just for the meme of how bad it is. I don't know if we're quite there yet, but there do seem to be some early signs that might be the case. So anyway, that's my review of the Lord of Ring Gollum. Until next time, stay waspinated. Oh, I guess I should point out that it is June, and my birthday is at the end of the month, where I'll be turning 45. And so if you haven't, bought a book in a while, or feel some other desire to, support the channel in some way, just as like a birthday present / thank you, I will point out that I do have the super thanks thing turned on. I generally don't bring this up. I just kind of leave that there for people to notice on their own. However, since it is the month that it is, And I'm, hitting one of those numbers that feels a little bit more significant than, say, like turning 43 or 37. 45 has a nice roundish kind of sound to it, but that's all besides the point. It's easily divisible by 5, and that's what counts. So, hit up that super thanks if you feel so inclined. Otherwise, hit like and subscribe. Do all the other things. If you don't want to just give money for nothing, buy a book. I have tons of books. You can get them in PDF on DriveThruRPG or in print on Amazon.com. Follow the usual links, watch other videos, and all that kind of stuff. And until next time, I already said that.